So literally, I was taking out of my closet clothes from Salvation Army, and I would create all these outfits. And I would look in my mirror, and really now I look back, I call it my magic mirror. And I would make all these outfits, and I would pretend that I was anywhere but where I was. And what I was really doing, Corey, is, I look back and really I think about it, and I was using clothing as a tool to not only entertain myself, because I was talking in the mirror and I was pretending there were people talking back at me, but I was also using it as a tool of feeling good, of seeing myself, of where I wanted to be and where I could be, and imagining myself in all these places by what I was putting on my body. And it really, it was so much more than the clothes. It became for me at that time a way to escape. There was a lot of abuse going on in the home at a very young age, and I used it as a way to escape from that a little bit. And so as I got older, I learned, at this point in my life, I realized what a gift that was, that I grew up that way. Like, that if I wouldn't have lived in a place that didn't have electricity and didn't have a television, I had to entertain myself. Like, perhaps if I didn't live that way, I wouldn't have the superpower that I have today of having this imagination. Because not only the imagination, that I've been able to, like, I flex that muscle at such an early age and really was able to use it as this tool, but I also suffering the way that I suffered as a child, it allowed me to really understand and empathize with what other people may go through. And it also allowed me to experience what it felt like, not only to not want to be seen and want to just kind of melt into the background. I felt invisible. I remember thinking, am I invisible? Like, as a child, thinking that. And when I say not want to be seen, even in my teenage years, as I got older, um, there was still abuse going on, and there were times where I just wanted to be invisible. Like, if my dad didn't see me, then he wouldn't be hurting me. And so I played with this a lot. I thought about it, and when we're young girls, we think we're the only ones that that feel the way that we're feeling. Like, we think we're alone in feeling like we don't belong. Maybe we're not feeling confident in who we are, or really feeling confident in allowing what's inside us, like what we love, to shine through, because maybe we have shame around it. And I had all those things. I didn't feel good about who I was, but the thing that I had my creativity and I had my imagination. And
So I want to ask you when we're right here in this part, because I think this is the hardest thing for people to understand when they hear stories of people really just following their heart and their passions and their dreams, is how do you do that? How do you move forth? And so when you're talking about being this really insecure, not solid teenage girl, how do you go from there? Because teenage years are those years we're talking about and thinking about, what do we want to do when we grow up, right? So how do you go from that? And as we know, you had 25 years in the fashion industry. So when you think about the fashion industry as a whole, it's
Mhm.
very cold, right? I think somewhere I read, when you were talking about fluorescent lights, right? It's true. You walk in and it's just, in order to get any kind of personalized service in a department store, you have to be rich. It's just the fact of the matter. There's no other way around it. And so, how did you get from that structure of what we see and feel and believe about the fashion industry to what you bring clients, which is this personalized one-on-one approach that sees them not in their size or their current life, but like inside, who are you? How did
Mm,
you get to that? Like that's such a huge journey. And
yes, it
we,
has been.
I love that you started at this young age, because what we dream about, what we wanted, what we felt passionate about as a child is truly what we were born in, right? That's what God created us to be. And we so often dismiss that. We dismiss it. So it's so amazing that you started right there. But
Yeah.
then how did you get from that, knowing in your heart that this is something that brought you so much joy,
Hmm.
into our culture and our society that says, well, this isn't success. This isn't the way it's done. This
Hmm.
isn't, and we could fill in the blanks 100 times, to where you are now.
Yeah. That's a loaded question. It's a loaded question. But what I would say is that I had a deep, deep knowing. I even think back to that age when I was, in the mirror doing what I was doing. That there was something else there with me. Like it was a feeling. It was I wasn't really brought up with much religion, I would say. And and whatever to whoever is listening, whatever it means to them, spirituality, the universe, God, there was something with me, and a knowing, a deep knowing that I was put here on this earth for something very important, and I didn't know what that meant. I just knew it. And I always knew that I was different. But, and as I got older, there was a lot of shame around being different, but I still inside, I knew, I had the knowing and leaned in. And I think a big part of, really people and women, specifically tapping into what they're put here to do is to really learn to go inward and trust and have that remembering of that feeling, because every child has that feeling and we lose it right when we get older. But I have always been a woman of action, so having the knowing and then taking action of what I know, no matter what is going on the outside. And so I left Maine at a fairly young teenage age of 16, and it was my goal with this knowing that I was going to work in retail. And when you have a knowing like that, you don't really question why, and you don't even question necessarily how, in a way, because I didn't know what the outcome was going to be, but I knew that in order for me to live my life's purpose, it was not going to be in Buckfield, Maine. And so going to Winnipeg, and I think having the innocence of not knowing what's about to happen is like it's a gift,
It's a gift.
when we're younger. And I went to Winnipeg and wanting to work retail, and I did get a job there. It was really hard to actually get that first job because I had no experience other than dressing myself and, working, picking strawberries in the summer and babysitting and different things. Obviously, no fashion in Buckfield, Maine. But I did get a job, and so I thought, gosh, I finally found my place. Like, I'm going to be accepted because I am where I'm meant to be. And, you know, and I discovered early on, and I know you've probably heard this story, but I had the opportunity to begin to dress women in this clothing store, and I had never experienced that before. I had only experienced myself, and so I got to see women that were high power women that would come into this store, and they were executive women. They looked so intimidating, like so intimidating, and I wanted to dress them. And after I got the job, I learned about plus size clothes. I didn't even know, like, with sizing, that there were specific stores that were only these certain sizes that were larger. And I saw women coming in that were fuller figured, and I'm skinny, like scrawny. I hated how skinny I was. I was called chicken legs in school. And but these women didn't want my help because, and I didn't know that it was because I was skinny. They thought, how is she going to dress me? And I felt, again in my life, I felt like, oh my gosh, I don't fit in. Like, how is this happening? I thought finally I found my life's purpose, right? And so I'm taking it personally, and I'm questioning even what I thought was my purpose. But then something happened where this woman came in to the store one day, and I'll never forget her name. She was Cathy. And I know you've heard the Cathy story. Everybody hears the Cathy story, but it really was a pivotal moment for me, because, I finally got the courage to really stand up for myself with the women that were coming in and saying no to me. And this woman had also said, no, I don't want your help. And when she went to leave the store because she found nothing, I spoke up. I used my voice. I wasn't invisible. I said, "Excuse me." And like, I said it so loud, like, my face went beet red. I embarrassed myself because I thought, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing?" But I knew that changing the way that I was doing things was the only way to change things. So, I did. And I said, my name is Jessica. I know you said you didn't want my help, but clearly you had a purpose coming all the way to this store. So why don't you just give me a try? And I'll never forget that day. And I had used my imagination for these women coming in. I had used the imagination of seeing them in clothes that I would put them in, and I knew they were doing it wrong. And I knew they were doing it wrong because when they would put clothes on, I would watch them in the mirror put on clothes that were too big, or they would see themselves in something fitted, and I watched them shame their bodies. And this is all based on body language. Like, they
Right.
didn't have to tell me anything, I could see it. And so I had already in my mind dressed Cathy. And so now was my opportunity to do this for real. And I did. I put her in an outfit. Had resistance around it, but I think it was my confidence. It was my, like, I pulled
Bold.
out my power and I was going to do this. And she came out of the fitting room in it was a fitted, fairly fitted outfit, not tight, but it skimmed her body nicely. And she looked in the mirror, and she got nervous. Initially, she looked at herself, and I could see her eyes going, like they were going to her stomach, to her backside, like she's looking like, and I was like, no, no, wait. And I took this like long duster sweater and I put it on her, and a necklace and a scarf just to like lay it down and tie it in with all the blues, and it had like pink in it and all this stuff, and put on some little pumps and a belt and tuck her shirt in, and I moved out of the way to watch her look in the mirror, and everything changed in that moment. Like, she transformed, but I also had this, like, all right, I was right the whole time. And she looked in the mirror, and she started crying. She was
Mm.
crying, and she looked at me and said, "Oh my gosh, like, thank you. For the first time, I have never felt pretty. I've never felt pretty, and I feel beautiful. Like, I don't know where you pulled this out of, this outfit, but I feel beautiful." And so, really, that was the point of, like, the knowing. Like, I had the knowing, and it really was true. It came to life. I got to see it happen for someone else other than myself. And, but, life happened, and I was going through difficult, and my dad was abusing me. And I used clothes to make myself feel better. But you know what? I didn't want to be seen. I didn't feel good about myself. But I would use the clothes to, like, step into where I wanted to go, and, like, pretend. It was like my whole imagination, like putting on, and I would put on makeup and do my hair and put on the outfit and I was really successful in school. I loved, I didn't really fit in with other people, with other kids. But I was super successful in school and then went on to college and was still trying to find my way. But I really did use the clothing in a way to um, really make myself feel good and I would feel like I was in my power when I felt beautiful.
So, what is it that you bring? What do you tell clients? Because this is I know this is going to go through people's head as they are introduced to you for the first time. Is why do we have to dress a certain way to feel powerful? Why do we have to dress a certain way to feel like we are who we are? And the answer is we don't have to. But what about being very conscious and intentional about the way you dress?
Yeah.
What does that do to clients that you've seen, that you've worked with? How does it change?
Yeah.
Maybe you have a client come to you and they're already super successful in our society's way of success. They're beautiful. Maybe they're authors. Maybe they're, it doesn't matter, whatever they are. What is, what is when you connect them with the style that actually represents themselves? What happens in them? Kind of like Cathy.
Yeah. Well, as you know, Corey, who I really serve deeply is the high performing woman. Like she's either done some really big things or she's doing big things or she's ready to step into something bigger. But there's a feeling for her, and I'll really describe her because I know her so well, and I can share a story even. But she may feel, because she's this high performer doing big things, she may feel a push in her life, like she's trying to be the best version of herself in every aspect. She wants to be the best mother she can be, and wife, and be fully present with her family when she's with her family. Like, she's overachiever there, but also in what she feels her life's purpose is. And I do work with a lot of keynote speakers and coaches and book writers and people that are doing really heart-centered things and serving other people. And but there's this feeling usually that she describes in the beginning of, like, she's hustle, hustle, go, go, go. And what I know just in watching, women like this, and I'll give you an example of this woman that came to me, and she was an intuitive business coach. And actually she became my intuitive business coach through this process. It was like really cool of me kind of helping her, stepping in, and she helped me too. But um she came to me, and and she was so beautiful, like just a beautiful, like long dark hair and beautiful face. And like, she got on big stages already, she was already doing some really successful things, but she felt like there was something missing. And but she couldn't quite put her finger on what it was, but she didn't fully feel beautiful in how she looked, even though other people complimented her. And you'd see her on a stage and you would never think there was any insecurities there. But I actually knew there was right away, because she showed me what she was currently wearing. And she was wearing like long tops, slimmer jeans, like slimmer on the bottom, or shorter skirts, but always a long top, untucked, never showing her waist or anything. And she was so beautiful. And I would look at her, and I knew she was hiding. I knew she was hiding something. And I also knew from my experience watching women in mirrors for so many years, kind of peering in, I knew that women used clothing as a tool to hide themselves,
Yes,
because they didn't want to
definitely.
be fully seen. They only wanted people to see what they thought or perceived was good, and hide whatever they perceived was not good. And so I knew she was doing this. I didn't say anything, but I sent her first style box. First I asked her questions like, what do you really desire? You said you feel like there's something missing. If there wasn't anything missing, tell me what it would look like. And she was talking about these bigger stages. She was talking about her avatar clients and who she really wanted to serve. And she was like, I just am not quite getting that. And I said, tell me more about that. And she was sharing. And so this is my opportunity. Like I have a studio boutique here in Sarasota, Florida, but a lot of my clients are virtual. So I go in my studio boutique and I'm pulling all the clothes for her. And I'm like thinking in my mind, everything that we had talked about on the call, what she described as what she wanted, the stages, the clients and who that was. I was envisioning her in those outfits, being in those places as she described. And so I curated her first box. I ship it to her, and something happened that had never happened before. I get I get a message. I get a photo and a voice memo from her. She had gotten her box. And in that box, I had put things that I knew would stretch her. I put, jeans in there, and she actually was wearing the wrong size. She was wearing 2 sizes too big in the jeans. I had in there a very slim top, so very basic, because I always want to get people's core basics, core wardrobe really dialed in with quality fabric. And I put in there things that were slim fitting. And I had strict instructions that she tuck everything in. But I had her wearing this little camisole underneath it, put the t-shirt over it, tuck it in. I had a belts in that box, shoes, the whole thing, jewelry. And she had put the first outfit on. And this is the photograph I get on my phone. She had taken a picture. She was sitting at her desk, took a picture with her phone of her stomach sitting down in the chair and said, look at this. I feel awful. And I paused as I read this and I thought, no, is she going to send that whole box back? What have I done? Did I stretch her too far? Did I push this woman too far? And so I called her. I called her on the phone and I said, I received your message and I have a suggestion for you. And she said, okay. I said, I want you to wear this outfit all day. And I want you to sit at your desk and I want you to do every call. And I want you to, in between, go look in that full length mirror and do a pose and go back to your desk and carry on your whole day this way. And I want you to call me in 24 hours and I want you to let me know how you feel. And let me tell you, what happened was not what I expected. 24 hours later, Corey, my phone, I'm doing a call. I'm at my desk. My phone dings, some notification. And I get off my call and I pick up my phone and it's an Instagram notification that someone has tagged me in a story. And I open it up and there she is. She's with this sexy pose, looking in the mirror in outfit number 2 with her shirt tucked in and her belt on and the jewelry and the whole bit with this sexy face, hand on the hip. And the caption says, thank you at the Jessica Papineau for making me feel beautiful. What happened? What is going on? Because I had seen women transform so many times and I had stretched them and all these things, but that I had never gotten that strong of a response. And so I called her and I asked her to share with me. And she said, I had to process some things and you forced me to look at myself. And she said, it took me some time. I had to spend the time. I had to keep going back to the mirror and looking. And she said, I couldn't see the middle part of my body as anything but big. And so I just wanted to cover it. And I was disgusted looking at myself. And as I looked back at the mirror and I go back to the mirror and she said, my eyes started to shift, like everything changed. And the next day I looked again and it wasn't the same. I didn't look the same. And she has never been the same since. She got rid of all those big tops. And so really what changed for her after 6 months time of working with me, and she said, I'll do the work, Jessica, just tell me what to do. And so I did. I plan people's outfits for every day, but it's more than the clothes. It's coaching. I'm really
Right.
coaching women to fully step in. They have to trust me because it takes time. It's action every day, getting up, suiting up, showing up. And really, what they're doing is showing up for themselves.
Well, and what I hear you saying too from that past experience is that it's the clothes are the tool,
Yeah.
but it's really when you talk about your ideal client, the women that you typically work with, are these overachievers? Well, what is one trait that most overachievers have? They don't like to bow down to a challenge. They're going to rise to a challenge. That's what these women were born to do. And so you're challenging them to step into a tool that makes them feel uncomfortable, which anytime we grow, it feels uncomfortable in any shape or form. And you're just asking us to grow in the way that we present ourselves to the world, which is really vulnerable, right? That's really vulnerable. And when you tell us to do something that makes us feel very vulnerable, boy, howdy, does that open up some wounds, right? And we talk about, I wish we could go back to what is it like the medieval times when women's midsections were actually considered beautiful and glorious because our culture has taught us that one fat roll, one love handle, whatever it is, one cellulite is so ugly. And that is so untrue, but it's what we live in. And so it's a belief, and beliefs are so powerful. There are truths because we've been told that long enough or seen that long enough that it becomes true.
And then what happens? You're so right. It's a belief and it's about what you believe to be true. And so part of the process is a shedding, right? And I believe, something must die for something to be born. But in order for that change to happen, we have to walk through it and we have to lean into it. And so, what happened in this situation, and she's actually going to be coming on my podcast for a second time. Her name is Christina Deering. She tells that she's very open about the story. Um, but, really what happened with Christina is she went from having these beliefs, and when the belief and what you think the truth is so ingrained in you, it's so interesting. You can look in a mirror and you actually see the truth that you believe that's a lie.
Yes.
And so when you can break that down, right? When you can lean in, you can walk through, you can move through the pain of what's behind that and get on the other side, you can begin to see what the truth actually is. And when that shift happens, and it happens in a moment, I mean, for Christina, it happened in 24 hours, right? But it can happen in a moment. And once the shift happens, you can never unsee it. Like you can't unknow the feeling that you have when you actually see the truth. And so what's really happening for these women that I'm serving, and why as you can hear, I'm so deeply passionate about it. But what happens is that she then truly sees the truth of what she looks like. And it's a feeling. It's a feeling of connection to your body. And we're here in a body, right, to deliver something, right? And I believe we're here, of service. We're here to learn. We're here to grow, but we are here to serve. And how being, serving the type of women that I do that are all also service minded, how can they possibly fully serve deeply if they do not fully see themselves? Because if they're not seeing themselves in the truth of how they really look in all their beauty, and they're not highlighting all the best things, and they can't see that, how possibly can that gift, that knowing that we all have, actually come through and serve others deeply? It's not
Mm,
possible. And
yeah.
so in the world that we're in, we're all, online. We're all, a lot of us, social media is a thing. We're on stages. I'm doing all the things too now that I'm, serving in this way. I'm going on stages and have to be visible, and it's intimidating. It's one thing to connect with yourself in the mirror and finally see yourself. It is a whole other ball game when you actually walk out that door and you step into rooms with people that are looking at you, and you step into your social media, into this, you're looking into the abyss of who's looking at me, and it's scary stuff. And so I'm walking through that journey with each of these women. But things shift. Christina, she was able to double her income. She is on really big stages now. And you know what? She is still stretching, and she is still scared, because now we're working on the next step into.
Absolutely. So if you and I just there's so much of that I believe. I believe that we really do have to connect with who our being is in order to expand in any way. And it doesn't matter if you're listening and you're a, executive or high functioning woman. It doesn't matter any of those things. You can I want to celebrate the mom that's staying at home with the 3 kids or 5 kids or 1 kid, whatever it is. I want to celebrate that woman and just say there is a level of expansion for you, because as a parent, we are constantly having to expand. And so when we show up feeling good about ourselves every day, you always talk about this: suit up and show up, right?
Yeah.
And suiting up isn't just clothes, but it's the way the clothes make you feel in order to show up in the world. So if you could give, let's say, 2 to 3 pieces of advice that every woman in the world, doesn't matter what you're doing, what you're servicing, what your passion is, what your purpose is, could do to really show up more confident in who they are, what would those be?
Well, one of the things that I recently, because as someone who had, like, the gift that I have of this imagination, I'm beginning to teach women how to flex the muscle. Because what I find that when I talk to women about where they want to go, what they desire, they can tell me what they desire, where they want to be. They can even tell me what it feels like to be there. But when I ask them, what do you look like there? They can't tell me because they can't see it. And so I think what is so critical, what's so important, is to spend some time being really, really curious about, if you were to feel like, if I meet a woman and she's like, I don't like my midsection, I don't like this area, I don't feel confident in my body, it doesn't matter what I put on, I don't feel good. I get her to, instead of focusing on, number one, focusing on what she doesn't love about her body, I get her to also not go looking on social media, or check out, and not to put down any stylist out there. I'm not, or the fashion world and how it works, but a lot of it is set up to shame women. I will say that for sure. And there's a lot of fashion rules out there, and body type, and this is your color, and this is what you should be doing, and never wear skinny jeans again. And there are no rules. Like, I burn the rules, I color outside the lines, and I ask her, I want her to be curious and kind of go more internal and flex the muscle of her own imagination, and take time during her, and I know young moms, when your kids are young and you're a mom, and like, you don't have time in the morning, it's really hard. Like, I remember, I appreciate that so much. But we are in an age of, like, women do realize the importance of priming, right? Whether that be first thing in the morning, or when your kid is down for a nap,
Yeah.
that kind of
Yeah.
thing. But taking the pause to go inward, close your eyes, and imagine what you really desire. Imagine, remember what it was like when you were a child, like how it felt when you were in that place of play, of the knowing of what you loved and all the things. Like, take a moment and think about what those things are, and what does the highest version of you feel like in that blissful place where you're not worried about what anybody else thinks you should look like or be doing, or any of those things. That aside, what does it feel like? Where are you in a moment of being the highest version of you? And for just that moment, step outside yourself and see her, look at her body, think about it in your mind, and then spend some time in your mirror, like make it your magic mirror, and look at yourself and imagine and play in your closet, try some things on. And over time, it doesn't happen overnight. It definitely doesn't happen overnight. But, once we can stop looking outside at what everyone is saying we shouldn't do, and we begin, you can begin to put pieces on your body that feel really good. And sometimes I find those pieces can already be in your closet. There's probably not a lot of them, and I find there's not a lot of them because there's things that start to come up around worthiness, even. And as moms, like, we're investing in our family, we're doing for our husband or our children or whatever, and we put ourselves last on the totem pole. But and those pieces in there, we're probably saving them for someday. We're not worthy of wearing them today. If you can start putting those pieces on and then begin to, like, invest in yourself. And I have out there, Corey, my power presence quiz, which it took me a long time to formulate that, because with a quiz you think of, oh well, you got to put her in a box, like the output of what the quiz says, but it's really not that at all. It really helps women, give them a reflection back to, like, where are they at with how they're showing up, where are the areas of improvement, where can they begin to stretch and grow themselves in how they're showing up in the world. Are they showing up small? Are they shrinking themselves when really inside they got a fire burning in there and they have not shared that with anybody? And so it really will give you an actual kind of, it'll place you kind of where you are, for you to really look at and see what next steps could be. And whether you're working with me or you just are doing this on your own, I think it's just a place to be really curious
Well, and
about.
I love when you talk about that because one of the things that just keeps coming through my head right now is well, you said color outside the lines, and you said curiosity. And one of the things that keeps coming, I'm just going to use myself as a protocol, but it's like keeps coming up is color, color, color. And I think that typically we're attracted to the colors that we desire
Hmm.
on other people because they're too bold, they're too quiet, you shouldn't wear yellow, that wash, whatever it is. There's all those
Yeah.
beliefs again, right? And I say yellow because one of the things I will share right now that I always comes up is Leah Valencia Key wears a bright canary yellow everywhere she goes. And it is her thing, it's her color, it's her branding, but it's more than that. It brings smiles to the people around her, right? It brings smile to her own heart because the people that are around her are bright and sunny. And so I think color is one of those things that we can really start with. We can get curious about color and what it means. And it's really easy as a mom to maybe change the next t-shirt you buy a different color and see how it feels on you, right? Or like you said, buy the necklace that you think is just not practical. Hey, you know what? The baby might like really chew on that. It may be a really good gift, right? So it's
Yeah.
that curiosity to step outside of what we've always done and find something new. And it's not easy. It's not comfortable. Um, and I'm just saying that from personal experience. It's like not easy and not comfortable, but it's very cool to kind of find something that makes you feel different. Find something that makes you feel more confident when you step into that new room, whether that's a new job, maybe it's a new classroom, and just feel steady in who you are.
There's some things that happen when you do that too.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some big things that happen.
There's some big things, yes.
So I will definitely drop a link for the what do you call it? The power presence quiz?
The power presence index quiz. Yeah,
Index quiz. Okay, I'll
yeah.
drop a link. I'll pull that off your
Mhm.
website and I'll drop a link for that. Um, but how can people find you if they're, if they're looking for you, they want more information about you, how can they find you and what do you recommend that look like?
We've worked really hard on our website to centralize everything, and it's actually all right there, csjstyling.com. That's where the Power Presence Index quiz lives. My podcast,
Yeah.
Living Aligned Styled with Purpose, is there. We've got blog, all my Instagram, Facebook, what
Okay.
else? LinkedIn, YouTube. It's all in one place. You can find it.
Okay,
And
perfect.
so my suggestion is just start. I would start with the Power Presence Quiz Index, but for sure, I mean, I love my podcast. In fact, Corey, we need you on. I love the guests that come in. I really, I really curate these women that are bringing really big gifts to other women and other people in the world. So that's a good spot. But Instagram, we put lots on there, the blog, all of the things.
Well, I will
Um,
definitely link that in the show notes too. I ask all my guests, what does courage mean to you? I got to put the glasses on again. This is what it looks like, people. Courage to me is the willingness to embrace the uncomfortable. It is choosing alignment over approval, expansion over safety, and possibility over fear. Courage is not the absence of doubt, but the decision to move forward anyways. I love that. And I love how you put it, alignment over approval, right? So it's connecting to ourselves versus what the outside noise is coming in. Expansion over safety, which is a big one. That's a hard one, but we can't expand if we stay in the four realms of those comfort zones. And possibility over fear, because uh, possibility growth happens in spite of fear. It happens when we walk right alongside of fear. So I love, love, love that. What's one thing you would leave our guests with today?
One thing that's been actually, and I have a mastermind as well, and my mastermind, I'm always like right before I go on, I'll like change the whole script of what I was going to do, and my people get like, oh, here she goes again. But one thing that has kind of like been on my heart lately is is the word wait, and using wait as an acronym. There's two ways of using it, but why am I thinking like and wait, why am I thinking that I have to wait? And what I mean by wait is, we sometimes as women think that we have to work just a little bit harder. We have to achieve something else in order to reward ourselves. In order to invest in ourselves, we have to, make a certain dollar amount, or our kid has to graduate school, or we have to wait until we lose the weight. And like this whole thing about waiting is I want like your listeners to really think about where in their life are they waiting, and why are they waiting, and is it that they're waiting for something to change in order to do something? And I want you to consider this. There's something about change that's really interesting, because yes, change is scary, but what I know in my life experience and in the experience of working with so many women is nothing changes if nothing changes.
That's truth.
And so I know that was not about clothes, but it could be,
That's
because
right.
perhaps you are waiting to invest in your wardrobe. Perhaps you are waiting to step into this next version of you because you think you have to accomplish something before you
Mhm.
actually get there. And
Yeah,
those are all lies.
those are all lies. Absolutely. 100% agree with you. Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, Jessica, I cannot tell you again, how grateful and blessed I am to have you. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please, please, please download, share, like it, put Jessica's name out there, let everyone know about her and her extraordinary gift. And until next time, my friends, I hope you have a wonderful day.